Hello, Livestream Legends! Yo! What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are kicking off another episode of Livestream Legends. What we've got set up for you guys today is a stream about streaming. One of the recurring dilemmas of jumping into live streaming is how do we get people to stay engaged? Even to show up to the stream is half the battle, but once they're there, how do we keep people engaged and on the stream as long as possible? So we'll be going into that with simple details as well as advanced pro strategies to keep people on your stream longer. So everybody that's here, drop a quick little comment if you're hanging with us. I see Scott hanging with us over on Facebook. Nick is rocking and rolling on LinkedIn, as well as Thomas is chilling with us on LinkedIn. Thank you guys so much for joining. And the first thing I am curious about is understanding your guys' perspective. So we'll try and tap into how things feel from your end. One of which is the music selection. I would love to know if you guys are curious to move forward with this show with background music or without background music. That's going to be our first little engagement trigger. So regardless of whatever platform you're jumping in on, I see Hot Boys Hammer coming in from YouTube. Good to see you. Victoria on LinkedIn, Anna on LinkedIn. Hello, hello, all you brilliant, beautiful people. Drop me a vote for with music or without music. You can do a yes or a no. Nick's going for the yes music. Let me get it queued up just in case. I guess I should have prepped for that. But we'll be going through and I'll kind of try and go a little meta and have engagement triggers for you guys about this anyway. So I'm seeing some votes coming in with music. Lots of people coming through. I only want background music if it's Nickelback. Livestream Labs over on Facebook. Unfortunately, that would bring a army of copyright strikes. So it looks like a decent amount of people are kicking in the music. So lesson number one is let your music or let your audience choose your stream destiny. In this case, it looks like we are going to be playing a little bit of backing music. We'll keep it educational. We'll keep this useful and functional for all y'all. So thank you for jumping in. Appreciate all of you guys. Let's get started with today's episode on pro production strategies and engagement for y'all. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the show. If you have any questions throughout this journey or throughout this process, please let me know. If you want to jump in, we can address your situation individually. The whole point of this Livestream Legends show is for you guys to become Livestream Legends with me. I'm just figuring out this journey and sharing tips and advice I've learned along the way. So thank you guys all for joining. Appreciate you jumping in with some early votes. And yeah, please hop in the comments as often as you'd like. I would love to cater the messaging and the experience to you specifically. So the first thing I'd love to know is, what is your level of streaming experience? Just give new, mid, or pro, and that'll help me adjust my language to see where exactly you guys are at. But this should be pretty universal. You can use this in any type of stream setup. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump in, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. So what we're talking about today is secret strategies for engagement and retention. And this is the formula I've tapped into, is these 3 categories. So we're going to be going over all 3 of these categories, the first of which is active engagement, somebody that's actively participating throughout the show. The alternative is easy engagement, something super simple, super easy, exactly like you guys are answering here. I asked for a quick little question and a 1-word answer. Very simple, easy engagement tricks you can get people to make sure they're staying active. And then the last piece is more of a strategy of how to integrate curiosity and surprise in your streams. A big mistake amateur streamers make is they have the exact same show every damn time, and there's nothing that the moment somebody comes to the show, they know exactly what they're going to get, and there's never any curiosity or surprise. So we'll be tapping into a few strategies as well of how you can leverage this to your advantage without being super gimmicky. So welcome, and thank you guys for joining. Anybody that's joining a little bit late, feel free to hop in the comments. Let me know you're hanging here with us today. And we're going to go ahead and get started in our first category of active engagement. So the primary thing you want to be doing in this category is giving people a reason to actively, continuously be a part of it. And the first and easiest way to do this is to join a game or an activity. So you can set up your show to essentially have a on-screen game, something like trivia. I'm a big fan of marbles on stream, which is actually a really fun way to play like marble racing games. And this is something that makes it very obvious and also kind of fun for somebody to jump in, and they literally can participate and be a part of the show continuously. They can see their points, they can see them on the screen if they're ranking higher, what position they're in. Little details like that make people feel really special when they see their name or their username on the screen. So a simple game like Jackbox games are also another brilliant example. I see the people hopping in here. We play Jackbox games all the time. Hello, Elizabeth coming in from Virginia. Thank you so much for joining us. Anybody that's jumping in, joining late, let us know where you're coming in from and hop in the chat here. So we're talking about games and activities that you can participate in. So the very obvious and easy one is trivia. That's something that everybody gets. Everybody has a little bit of a competitive edge inside them to want to join something like that, as well as the actual gaming, all of the traditional gaming that you can play, the try-hard gaming. That's going to be a little bit more niche and specific to certain audiences. So when you're making these games and activities, make sure it's relevant to the audience that you're serving, and the context. You got to think about the context here. So Teresa jumping in with a quick question. Is that a new shirt or just a different color? It is neither. I've got my same black V-neck rotation on. Repeat always. Sorry to disappoint. There is no surprise in that realm. So let's continue on here with the second category here, which is a little more advanced, but also something really fun to play with as a streamer, as a producer. And this is controlling the show, allowing your audience and people that are attending to literally participate and control elements of the show. And this is something that becomes really fun to play with in the context of, like, I think there's a lot of Twitch commands and triggers. Nick Lozano, who is here in the stream in the audience, is a brilliant example of this. He's created triggers and ways for people to literally control the show from the audience. So there's a ton of ways you can do that through commands, through plugins, and fancy ways. But essentially the goal is, how can you let your audience determine what's going to happen? And it can be literally the like what is going to be the next segment of the show. Or it can be something very simple, like a little audio trigger, if you want somebody to be able to trigger a piece of audio, or a light overlay onto the stream. It's something that makes people feel like they were part of creating this stream, creating the experience. So I'd encourage you to think of, how can you let people control the show without it going entirely off the rails? That's kind of the other delicate balance of that equation, is making sure that it's mindful control and not just a complete hijacking of the show. So this third category we're going to tap into is something Twitch is phenomenal at, and this is creating some type of gamified rankings or points. This encourages people to participate in the stream for longer, or to be more active in it. So you see this a lot with what Twitch calls channel points. You can essentially earn points as a viewer of a specific stream. And this is a really creative way to level up your audience and your engagement, while it not needing to literally cost them money. They can pay with their attention in a way, and essentially the most loyal watchers and loyal supporters of your stream are now further incentivized to watch for a longer time if they're earning some type of loyalty points or reward points. And the other piece of this is the rankings element. Humans are naturally competitive, and if there's any type of points or rankings, you'll notice people will always want to be the best, or at least improve their ranking. So that's a super, super effective way to start integrating more engagement and more retention for your stream. Now, the last piece of this is a little bit of a gamble, but I've created some brilliant moments. And this is to allow somebody to literally join the show from the audience. So this is a really creative way to keep people engaged if they feel like they have a chance to jump on and share their voice. And thankfully, Restream Studio is one of the super simple platforms that you can just jump in with only a URL. That's all you need to jump in. And you can jump in the studio in like a couple seconds. So this is a really creative way to tap into keeping people in your world, in your show, while also being a part of it. I promise you, if anybody gets to join your show live in the moment and share their voice, they'll remember that moment forever, and they'll attend more and more of your streams. So love it. Quick question coming in from Elizabeth. That's not entirely only available to Twitch, but it is something that if you are doing it on other platforms, Elizabeth, she's asking about the rankings and show triggers. There are really creative ways to approach this, and it is not Twitch exclusive. You can do it through YouTube. We're figuring out that there's actually creative ways to do it through LinkedIn as well. So just something to be mindful of. Feel free to connect with myself or Nick Lozano, who's here hanging in the audience, and we'll get you hooked up with an ideas for whatever platform you want to try and incentivize that engagement. So there are some options for active engagement. Usama in the building. Welcome to the show, brother. Good to see you hanging with us today. So let's go ahead and continue from active engagement onward into what I call easy engagement. Let's be realistic. A lot of people that are watching this stream it might be in a passive context. It might be just thrown up on a second monitor. It might be just something they're kind of casually tuning into while they're on another tab. And that's all right. That's a realistic way. So what we want to do is give people a very easy and simple way to start engaging. And the first way you can do this is just with a simple poll, a simple little vote that anybody can jump into. Again, on Twitch, they make this really easy. When you set up polls, you can just literally click, or you can do like a one-word answer poll or question. So this makes it very easy for anybody that's jumping in and watching to just have a quick little comment. They're actively engaged, and then they can go back to what they're doing. They don't have to literally be a part of every question and every round and actively glued to the screen. They can still do their passive thing, but they're engaged in a way where they hear it when the next poll is up. They jump in real quick and vote. So think about how you can integrate simple polls and voting into your stream experience. And you'll see these will get a lot of engagement because people are lazy sometimes, and they want the path of least resistance. So another thing you can do, this is one more level above that. Rather than setting up a poll or voting, you can set up the question for the community. So I could go ahead and ask a deeper question that kickstarts engagement. So something like, what is your favorite recommended movie right now? This would be a super simple way. By the way, I would actually like to hear if you have a movie recommendation right now. Any recent movie you've loved, you've enjoyed, you've had a good time. Share that in the comments, and we'll see if there's any I recognize or any I'll need to add to my list here. But this is something that can literally become an anchor point of your show based on somebody's response or where the conversation is going. You can now use that as a talking point for your show. So this helps keep things alive. It helps keep the community engaged, and essentially lets the community feel like they are a part of the experience rather than just being talked at and told what to do the entire time. I can get brilliant recommendations like Spaceballs, a absolute gem of a comedy. If anybody here has not seen that, please follow Teresa's recommendation for Spaceballs, one of the best parody movies ever. But you can see how now, if I was stuttering and stumbling and being awkward for a while, I now have something to talk about and continue the conversation. So think of what prompts and questions would kickstart good conversation. Now, the last thing you can do in questions and Q&A style stuff is inverting that equation, letting the audience ask your question or ask questions to you. This is something Shay Rowbottom loves doing so that she can have access to her audience and they can ask more about her experience, her world. So you can invert this equation and basically make it an open AMA, which is popular on Reddit. It's called an Ask Me Anything. So when you open up one of these AMAs, you have to be willing to go into accept that you have no idea where it's going. You can't just set preloaded questions and prompts. You truly have to let people ask you anything. And the beauty of it is you have no idea where the conversation can go, but at the same time, it can give you reasons to talk about something. It would be very weird for me to just come up and talk about myself for an hour straight. But if you guys had specific questions, this is something that gives it a little more relevancy, a little more context, and it makes it there's a purpose for me to jump into those conversations. So the last piece here, after we're moving out of the AMAs and the open Q&As, this is something super simple, just allowing people to participate in a giveaway. People love free stuff. It's a human nature. And if it's especially relevant to your audience, there is a lot of incentive for people to hang out in the giveaway. So you could set a simple trigger, comment this if you want to enter the giveaway for our camera or whatever it is for the day. So this is a super simple way to not only keep people engaged with the stream, but also to keep watching all the way until the end when the giveaway is announced. So this is a good double dip that increases engagement on stream as well as the retention on the stream. So those are the pieces that you want to keep in mind, is how can we keep people engaged as far as commenting and hanging out in the community, while also tapping into the how long can we stay on stream. Even if they're not in the comments, you still want people to participate and hang out for as long as possible. So I see some new people rocking and rolling in here. Sean Porter hanging out with us over on YouTube. Good to see you, brother. Kelsey Lips, I did trim the stash. I trimmed the stash. I no longer have the curly cues. They were feeling a bit too hipster-esque for me, but appreciate it. So yeah, let's go ahead and hop back into our little lesson we got brewing today. And the last piece we're jumping into is how to invoke curiosity and surprise into your stream for increased retention. So one of the very, very simple ways that you can do this is with countdown timers. Again, these have to be used strategically. I never suggest more than a minute of a countdown timer, unless it's like a topical one. So a really good example that you could do is if like the topic was switching every 5 minutes, you could have that countdown timer that's lets somebody know, here are the things that we're talking about today. Sort of Sports Center style, how they have what the next topic is coming on. This is a really great way to let people know what is coming, but also to give them a little bit more time if they're not digging the current topic, rather than just bailing and leaving the stream. If they see the topic is shifting in a couple minutes, they're going to be much more likely to hang out. Another brilliant example of this is Cher Jones. She does a brilliant job on LinkedIn Lives of she has all of her topics on the right side of the screen of what we're going to talk about during the show, and then a countdown for when the next one is starting. So very simple, very brilliant way to keep people in the loop for an extended period of time. I encourage you to think of how you can use countdown timers in creative ways rather than just a countdown to start a show. Definitely lots of creative ways you can tap into that. So let me know if you have any ideas. Share them in the audience with all of our community here. We got a bunch of streamers at all kinds of levels of experience. So I'm sure they would love to hear your ideas and experience thus far. Maria, hello, welcome to the party. I see some new people hopping in on all the platforms. Drop a quick little comment if you're hanging with us. Would love to see who's here. So let's keep it rolling. On to number 2. A special surprise guest in activity. You guys, this is a really great way to create a moment in a show that everybody remembers and everybody thinks of. A special guest that comes up out of nowhere, especially if it's relevant to the audience, can be a game changer for making the show more memorable. People don't want to know exactly what's coming 100% of the time. Whether they admit it or not, I promise you it's true. So if you start integrating a surprise special guest the last 5 minutes of every one of your shows, people are going to naturally be curious. If they're midway through the show, they're going to be wondering, I wonder who is going to be the special guest. And that curiosity will get people to stay and hang out longer. Now, it's important to not just use this in a gimmicky way and make everything's a surprise all of the time. But when it's truly a surprise guest or a surprise activity that pops up out of nowhere, these can be the moments that people remember and make you come back. Kelsey Lips, coincidentally, has been one of my surprise guests on one of these streams. Great to see you here, Kelsey. So this is an amazing little setup that you can integrate into your show and make people just feel like they were a part of something more special than just two people talking on a stream. So yeah, let me know if you guys have seen any shows utilizing this. I'd love to hear who's doing this well, who's doing this right. Always looking for opportunities to improve. So let's move into number 3 in this curiosity category. And this is strategic tension. People are naturally drawn towards when tension or conflict is happening. So this doesn't have to be literal, like verbal tension or verbal fighting. There's creative ways that you can create tension among your shows, one of which a prior show I ran, Lead, Laugh, Love, there was always banter between two of the characters, and they are characters, Dr. Brian and Ravi Rajani. They had this conflicting tension that was absolutely amazing for them to see their banter, to see what they were going to say about one another. They were always poking and giving each other jabs. And this is a really creative way to incentivize that curiosity of just a little bit in the back of your head of wondering, what are these dudes gonna do next? Like, if I would even be running the show, and I would always be curious, like, oh God, what are they gonna do? What are they gonna do? So if you can integrate a healthy version of that tension or that conflict in a strategic way, again, you don't want to be gimmicky about any of this stuff. It's got to have a reason and a purpose. That's a brilliant way to keep people in your world for a longer duration. So the last piece here, we've actually been seeing a few of these. That's just random shout outs and supports like this and the web gauntlet. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us over on YouTube. I appreciate you. And this is a perfect example. I had no intention of the web gauntlet coming and hanging out for this show today. Had no idea they were going to be here, but guess what? They are going to remember this quick little moment and this quick little shout out. So if you can surprise any of the supporters here in your world exactly like this, it's an amazing way to build a different level of tension. These shout outs and this surprise support like MFSB Live, my man Gabe, he is a phenomenal streamer. He's one of the best conversationalists and best interviewers that I'm aware of. So a quick little shout out like this, and anybody that's following on Twitch, please give my man a quick little follow. These little shout outs that you can't prep or plan for are game changers. I know we're human. Like, we want to be recognized. We want to be heard. We want our voice to be heard. We want to be seen. Like, those little moments can change the trajectory of if somebody never comes back to your stream versus if they become a loyal supporter. So just be mindful as possible about when those moments pop up and how you can feed into them with genuine surprise and support. So think of any creative ways that you can do that and encourage more people. So once other people see that, it's more likely that people will participate in the comments, participate in the shows. If they know there's that slight chance they might get a super secret little special shout out from you. So yeah, be mindful of that. So what we're going to do now is jump into how exactly we can tap into using these effectively. The easiest and most obvious way is by setting up a show segment that's specifically designed for engagement. So I used to do this in our Friday shows. I would intentionally have like a half hour that is made for a game. It's for trivia or for the marbles on stream was always my favorite. This is the very simple way to know, okay, the first half an hour, this is going to be happening. Then we go into our normal talking interview or whatever the main event is going to be for the show. So how can you think of this question? How can you integrate an entire segment that's based on engagement? That can be any of those previous tools we mentioned, trivia, games, etc., all of that fun stuff. So it's a very simple way to make sure everybody's on the same page, and you don't have to detract from whatever your main show is. Maybe you want to have a serious interview and you don't want people playing games the whole time. That's fine. But exactly as Web Gauntlets here hanging with us, you can set up a segment with it, and then added even a little bonus here with a cool stinger or transition. So this is another critical piece is you need the audience to be on the same page as you. So this was a perfect, well played, Web Gauntlet. That was a perfect transition into the on-screen overlays and prompts. So you need people to understand, what am I supposed to do? What part of the show are we at? What do I do? And one of the ways you can do that is just with an on-screen overlay. So if you had whatever a section called the game zone, where we're entering the game zone, you could have a little overlay and a transition that makes it very obvious when you're jumping into that. So thank you, Web Gauntlet, for hopping in there on that one. The other piece of this is a on-screen prompt. So this is something like using these little captions. These little captions in Restream Studio are a brilliant way to have just a little simple trigger. And rather than me saying, hey guys, we're in the open Q&A section, ask a question, you can just have this little overlay and it doesn't disturb the audio, doesn't disturb the primary portion of the show, but it lets people know what to do and how to do it. So be mindful of how you can integrate those. And as I just mentioned, the manual triggers and callouts, the calls to action here, these CTAs. Just as I did at the beginning of the show, I wanted to know your guys' experience level. I just had a quick little question straight to you guys. Let me know your experience level. Are you new, mid, or pro? And a simple little question like that is something that you can you have full control over it. You don't need any fancy setup, and you can also have full control over what you want people to do when it's a manual trigger and a call to action. So be mindful of how to ask those questions and be as clear as possible. Don't go in. I have a problem with this myself, of rambling and adding all kinds of unnecessary context to a question when ultimately all I needed to ask was, let me know your experience level in the chat. It can be as simple as that. So simplify your CTAs so that people are clear about what they need to do. Now, last piece of this is an automated trigger. This is the opposite direction. Rather than having a manual trigger, you can have automated digital triggers. They're often called commands as well. This is something that you can use bots, chat bots, or the Twitch, again, is way ahead of the game on this. You can start integrating commands into specific words. So like play DMX. That's one of our recurring commands. We kept getting that as a joke, and eventually made a real trigger for that gives that plays a little DMX sample when somebody enters that trigger. So think of how you can make fun, creative little automated triggers so that people can be a part of the show. Now, this is a creative way to pursue how to think of ideas for this. And my phrase that I know many other people are familiar with is to steal like an artist. There's never any truly 100% original thought. Most of the time, new ideas, new genres of music, new TV shows, they are an adaptation of an existing concept or idea. So when you're thinking of how to integrate new engagement and retention strategies, look at what works for others. This is the simplest way. You don't have to start from scratch. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are strategies and systems that work. So notice what works well for others. And if it works well, start digging into it and look one more level deeper. Start asking yourself, why is this working well? Why does this work for this audience? Go deeper into those questions and then ultimately start zeroing in on the concept of how can you optimize or build on this idea. So a solid strategy is finding what works for others, thinking about how you can optimize it, tweak it a little bit if they did something that wasn't quite optimal. You can improve on that concept and that idea. So think of how you can start doing that as just framing your mindset. And the last piece of it is implementing it into your specific style. This becomes a game changer for creating something that never existed before. Perhaps maybe you want to take the trivia concept, but you don't want it to be about just general broad trivias like what I do. So maybe you're a video creator or a content creator and you want to create a trivia section or a trivia game that's all about YouTube videos and viral YouTube videos that people have seen. Now, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you have something that's relevant to your audience. It's your own style, your own little format, and it's an idea that you can improve upon. Now, you didn't just steal it all the way across the board. You started with a core concept or core idea that you know works and improved upon it and made it your own. This is what you want to be framing and want to be setting up. Don't just straight up copy and duplicate somebody. People will know, and it eventually it just rubs people the wrong way. So as we get into the last section here, it's really just about leveraging technology and tools. This is the last thing that I want people to think of. And a very simple way to do this is we've been talking about triggers. How do we control our show? How do we control the visuals, the scenes, the overlays, the audio? Very simple way to do that is with something like a Stream Deck or a sample pad. If you guys are familiar with the music world, a sample pad is essentially just a big pad of buttons that you can set custom triggers to. So rather than just having what you can click on like with your mouse and keyboard, having a physical sample pad makes you feel like you're way more armed about what is going on and what you can control. So like my little sample pads here, I have intentionally set up this little sample of, it's like a, I don't know, I think it's like a Viking war horn. That's sort of the vibe we were going with this Livestream Legends show. But think of what creative ways you can set samples or sounds to trigger, visuals to trigger. If you're humorous, you could have You could set up a sample pad of GIFs. That would be a hilarious way if you wanted to trigger specific GIFs at certain moments of a show. Think of all of these ideas. There's so much you can do with this technology. It's absolutely mind-blowing. I just nerd out about it all the time. I still feel like I've barely scraped the surface of what you can do with the streaming world. So looking forward to leveling up with you guys over the weeks, over the months, over the years. Can't wait until we've all been streaming for years. So yeah, think of how you can use sample pads creatively. The other piece of this is app integrations, a really creative way to tap into things. Hello, high-tech classroom jumping in here, as well as the legendary Luke Matthews. Welcome. Thanks for hanging out, you guys. We are just wrapping up the last portion of this. So a lot of you guys have probably seen app integrations in like your stuff like Slack and email and whatever task management you use. All of these applications are starting to integrate with one another. So a really useful thing you can do is start integrating stuff like your Discord with your Twitch, with a chatbot. And now these integrations give you a whole new arsenal of what exactly you can do. So always look into what app integrations you have available to you and think of how you can creatively use those in a new way. So for those of you that are just joining us, thank you guys so much. We are wrapping up. We went over some brilliant engagement strategies here, curiosity and surprise, easy or lazy engagement, as well as active engagement. So what we are going into now is essentially just ways to leverage technology and tools in a creative way. So thank you guys all for hanging with me. Sultan, the legend, good to see you hanging with us, brother. I see you chilling on Twitch. Much appreciated. So yeah, we're just wrapping up here. The last two things that you can do to control your stream. Again, this is all about controlling the final experience and the stream experience of your users. So advanced software. This is going to be your OBS plugged into something like Restream, where you have full capability to create new scenes, new overlays, all kinds of different things are available through this, both on the audio and the visual side. So this is virtually a bottomless pit of what you could get into in the advanced software. But I do advise it's something you do want to look into over time as you're leveling up. But what more people are going to be interested in is something like this simple software setup like Restream Studio. This is another tool that's consistently getting better and better and better every single week. So there are very creative ways to jump in here. So like exactly like I've been dropping these what do you call them? Comment highlights. This is a super simple task, all thanks to Restream. I haven't even figured out how to do this in OBS, but in Restream Studio, it's a super simple one-click setup, as well as this chat overlay. If there are people jumping in the chat from multiple platforms, it's one of those things that consistently can increase engagement because people see that their conversation is being seen by everybody else on other platforms. So it helps make things feel a little less empty. Although, of course, as soon as I pulled that one up, nobody was commenting and it feels empty. But the premise of a feature like that was essentially to integrate the communication across channels, as well as give people a further incentive to feel like they're heard, to feel like they are part of the conversation. So that essentially wraps up this show, folks. As you've seen, all of this that I'm doing is through the lovely, brilliant Restream and Restream Studio, by far my favorite platform. So any of you guys that are curious about streaming, 100% my recommendation. And regardless of what level you're at in the journey, you can jump into Restream and figure it out, I promise you. So if this sounds useful to you, please jump in the description here and get started with a Restream account. You can get going for free, as well as getting you'll get a special little discount if you use the link that's attached here. So it's really been a phenomenal tool for me to simplify what I need to have ready, what I need to have done, and really just connect the ideas I want into reality. So as always, I'm going to continuously reinforce and support my recommendation for Restream. But that officially wraps up the presentation version of the show. So I'm going to take a dose of my own medicine and move into the Q&A segment. If you have a question about anything we talked about today, or a higher level question about just streaming, production, or gear, any of the above, please hop in the comments. I will jump in and see if we got any. Ooh, I see we do. So Gabe, also known as MFSB Live, is asking, how do you feel about mobile streaming? I am an absolute PC nerd, so I may not be the best source for answering this question, because everything I do is probably 95% on a PC or a computer. So to me, I feel like you lose a decent amount of the authenticity, well, I guess you can still be super authentic. Actually, it's forced authenticity in most streaming contexts, so you don't really have a choice to fake it. But for me personally, I love the control of having all of these tools at my disposal, the Stream Deck and the mixer and all of the Restream Studio chat and everything that you can click on here. What you lose with mobile streaming is all of that secondary level interactions. So unless you literally have to be mobile, like you're on a vacation, or you're at an event that you want to do the selfie style streaming or whatever, that feels like a more appropriate context for it. So for me as an individual, I always prefer the legit, I guess, pro broadcast style streaming. But there's no reason to not, I guess, avoid it entirely. I know platforms like Instagram literally only let you stream from a mobile device. So in some cases, that's your only option. And people like feeling like they're just a fly on the wall, like of you hanging out in your living room. So there is context for it. But as far as me personally, I do not enjoy them. So, not a mobile streamer. Gustavo's asking, how do you feel about character animation videos or posts? Interesting. Is this in the context of streaming, Gustavo? Because I have seen some very creative ways of using video animation and character animation through live streams, one of which is Code Miko. Code Miko is a Twitch streamer who she wears it's like a sensory bodysuit that tracks like her movement, her body, her motion. But her stream, the character on stream, Code Miko, is like she's like a robotic, like avatar human lady that she's created. And she's literally built out this entire character through animation, and she does all kinds of wacky, crazy stuff that if you donate a certain amount of bits, like stuff starts falling from the ceiling, like crazy level of integration. So I think in the right context, characters and animation can be used in a creative way that supports your stream. It's one of those things that has to be used with a strategy. It's not just to use it as a gimmick or to use it because it looks cool, because people will get be over it pretty quickly. And you want to think of how to do stuff sustainably. This is a long game. If you are jumping into streaming, it's not something that you can just do a one and done type of strategy. So I would say my synopsis for this question would be use characters and animation with a specific strategy. Let's pull in one more before we sneak out of here. Once you have these tools in place, is it just a matter of creating regularly and building your community along the way? Brilliant question, Web Gauntlet. A big piece of this, so I think the way to think of this is think of your stream simply as another way to communicate. Most obviously, like we talk with our voice and in cameras and in interviews, but I would challenge you to think of the stream itself as a communication tool. How can I communicate a message in a creative way through this stream? So thinking of that as basically the message, and you can create anything you want between show styles, show segments. If you haven't caught the prior episodes of this series, we have an entire show on finding your stream style and what's going to work for you. So that's what I would do on the show itself, the stream itself, and then expanding into macro level, it is about creating it regularly, creating consistently, and building your community. That, I say, is absolutely vital, Web Gauntlet, because it's very easy to get people to show up once. It's very difficult to get people to show up every damn time. But people like Enrique Vipers, who has been a long-time supporter since day one, consistently come because we've built a brilliant community around these shows and these streams. So think of how you can pull people into your world when you're not online. So when you go, even if you're streaming super consistently every single day, but it's only an hour a day, where do people go for those other 24 hours? If you can pull people into your community and your world while you're not streaming, it's going to pay off dividends in the long run. So, yeah. Oh, the line is always open. Web Gauntlet, would love to see who's behind the scenes there. If you would like to join our community, we have a Discord community growing. It's a brilliant example, I think, of how streamers can leverage that 24/7 mentality going on. So this is, let me see. We did get a question sneak in here about audience or bots that spam comments. Oh boy, this is inevitable. Elizabeth, thank you for asking the question again. I did not see the first one sneak in, but you guys, you will notice this. The more viewers your stream starts to have, the more these bots and people start popping up where they spam their product, their service, their whatever. One of the things we've talked about in prior episodes, Elizabeth, is having a community concierge or moderator that's always present for your shows. And this is something that in most cases, they'll be used to help people by giving them helpful links that are relevant that you're talking about, or if people, if I miss a question like I did here, the concierge can make sure that's addressed and said and pushed to the forefront. So there is a positive version of having that role filled. The opposite role you want filled is somebody that's moderating and removing those, either the spam comments or sometimes people just get like really nasty or really weird in the comments. So you can have a moderator that is on top of that and is able to mute the individual as well as kick them so that they don't continue doing that more. There's ways to set this up as an automatic moderation, but oftentimes those can mute or ban people that you don't want banned. So I try to keep it human for the most part. But it is one of those necessary evils that you're going to have to address. The best way when you're streaming, this is something I learned from Anya Rezina, she just blows right by those comments and ignores them. She doesn't say, oh, look at this guy spamming the chat. Look at this, whatever. Because you're drawing more attention to them, which is what they want. So if they come through, they try it a couple times, the comment gets deleted, they get ignored, it's very likely they won't come back. But if you feed into it, never feed the trolls. Rule 1 of the internet, never feed the trolls. If you ignore them, very often they'll disappear after a while. So brilliant question, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. That is our last little question of the day. Thank you guys so much for joining me on another episode of Livestream Legends. Each week we are tackling all of the lessons learned from my streaming journey and sharing it with where you guys are at. So appreciate you guys always hopping in here. It's been amazing to share this journey with you guys, and I'm looking forward to what's in store. We will be kicking off a new season, a revamped season of Livestream Legends, thanks to Restream. So everybody that's been joining us on LinkedIn, thank you. Everybody on YouTube, I saw everything popping over there. Much appreciated. And as always, the Twitch gang rocking and rolling. Thank you guys so much for joining another episode of Livestream Legends. I've been told I need to leave like a 20-30 second buffer at the end of the shows. So this is that buffer. We going into a little 20-30 second dance vibe. Welcome, or well, I guess thank you for joining Livestream Legends. Thank you guys so much for joining. Take care.